Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone, and today I want to talk for a little bit about the Milwaukee Bucks. This was originally going to be one of my full recap videos breaking down all the games, but I don't have a lot of time to record tonight, and I've got a lot I want to say about Milwaukee, so I just want to focus on them for now. I was expecting bigger and better things from the Bucks going into the season. I was an optimist because last year, sure, it was disappointing. They were a first-round exit. They weren't the big challenger to the Celtics that everybody thought they would be, but there were a lot of circumstances that kind of built towards that. I mean, they fired a coach mid-season because he lost the locker room. You had Doc Rivers come in mid-year, and that team didn't perform great under him, but they built a little bit of momentum, I felt like, going into the playoffs, and with the way the playoffs went, where they lost in 6 games to the Pacers and the Knicks were beat up, it feels like if Giannis didn't get hurt before the postseason, they could have actually been an Eastern Conference Finals team. Now, they were absolutely not going to beat the Boston Celtics, but I feel like if that Giannis injury just didn't happen, people look at last year's Bucks season in a way better light and would have been optimistic the way that I was, especially when you consider the circumstances that are new going to the season, like Dame and Giannis having a now full season under their belt playing alongside each other. They developed some chemistry. They're going to have a training camp now. They are ready because last year the Dame trade happened like literal days before training camp started and media day and all that stuff. It also, to me, felt like a Dame bounce back was inevitable because going to last year, he was coming off one of the best seasons of his career, but he didn't really perform. And he said there was personal stuff. He wasn't in his best shape. So he was set on just having this big renaissance year in Milwaukee. So I was expecting big things from Dame. Giannis was ridiculous last year. And I liked offseason acquisitions like Taurean Prince, DeLon Wright, Gary Trent. I feel like they did a lot right this offseason. I picked them to be a top 3 seed in the East, even though I was kind of worried about the health of Khris Middleton and the fact that they are coached by Doc Rivers. But overall, I thought they would be okay and one of the better teams in the conference. And it's only been 4 games. This is maybe a big overreaction video, but I'm already incredibly worried about the Milwaukee Bucks. They've started the season with a schedule that easily should have set them up for a 3-1 record at the worst. If things really go catastrophic, you're 2-2. But if things go really well, you could be 4-0 and make a statement to begin the season, even without Khris Middleton in the lineup to start the year. This is still a schedule it feels like they should have taken advantage of, and they did so in Game 1. They faced off against the Sixers, no Embiid, no Paul George. Even though it was on the road, they took care of business. Dame looked great. Giannis played well. I like the way they played off of each other. They did let Philly hang around for a little bit longer than I would have liked, but it's the start of the season. There are going to be close games. There's going to be rust, and they got the W. That's all you can ask for. Then they play the Chicago Bulls at home, this time in Milwaukee, who have nobody to stop Giannis. Dame. This should have been a cakewalk, a statement win, a blowout win in favor of the Bucks at home to go ahead and start the season 2-0. Instead, they went for a little bit in the first half, and then outside the first few minutes of the second half, didn't hold a lead. They got outscored by 12 points in the second half and gave up 133 points to the 2024 Chicago Bulls at home in a loss. That's bad. You really don't want to see losses like that. But again, it is early in the season. I guess without Khris Middleton. The Bulls were also just really hot shooting, so I get it. Things like that can happen. At the very least, the next game immediately following that was a quick tune-up game against the Brooklyn Nets, who are projected by many people to win like 20 games this season. They are all out going for Cooper Flag, and I'm sure they comfortably won this game in a bounce-back win, except for the fact that I'm now getting word that they lost, and they lost comfortably. They never led by more than 4, and they were down by as much as 22 points in the fourth quarter against the 2024 Brooklyn Nets. This wasn't some fluky win where they hung around and they just happened to hit a shot right there at the buzzer and the Bucks missed a couple of buckets that they usually hit. This was a bludgeoning in the fourth quarter. They got annihilated, and it was everybody. Cam Thomas, 29 points, and he's been on fire to start the season, so that's understandable, but like 2024 Dennis Schroeder dropped 29 points on your head. Like, shout out to the Thunder legend, but come on, 3 other guys dropped double digits. It was an embarrassing loss. Dame shot 5 of 13. They shot 30% from 3, turned the ball over 18 times. Taurean Prince played the most minutes on the team. For some reason, this has been a trend to start the season. Maybe he and Darvin Ham really are just BFFs, which, by the way, Darvin Ham is now also part of this coaching staff. And then tonight, like as I'm recording this video, they played the Boston Celtics. And it was maybe the best they've played so far on the second half of a back-to-back against the best team in the NBA, so I'll give them that. But at the same time, there was never a single moment I thought the Bucks were going to win this game. Even when they had a couple of leads here and there, I was for sure they were going to blow this by the end, and they did. They eventually fell apart like they have in their prior 2 losses. They went down by as much as 18 in the fourth quarter, lost by 11. And I know the Celtics are really good, but their goal is to compete in the Eastern Conference. They are set up to be a contender right now. These are the teams you're going to have to beat to do that. I get it. They're without Middleton, but the Celtics are without Porzingis, and they're not making excuses. They're undefeated. It was a similar story to every game where they got torched by a bunch of different guys. Jaylen Brown, 30 points. Drew Holiday, 21. Peyton Pritchard dropped 28 on their heads with 8 threes, 72% shooting. Like, Tatum didn't even play well. He was 6 of 16, and he's been the one that's been annihilating everybody to begin the season. It was embarrassing, and this has been a trend. Like, every game, guards have just torched them, whether it's Pritchard, it's Cam Thomas, it's Dennis Schroeder, it's Kobe White, who had 35, 6, 5, and 4 against the Bucks. Zach LaVine had 25 in the same game. Josh Giddey had 17, 6, and 9 on perfect shooting from 3 and overall great efficiency. Maxey had 25 against them, and he did take 31 shots, but it felt like Maxey was just missing open looks. He was getting the looks he typically hits. If it was a normal Maxey efficiency game, he could have dropped 50. He was just throwing up bricks to begin the season. It was much less about them stopping him, plus Kyle Lowry had 13 points efficiently anyways in 2024. They've looked lost on the defensive end to start the season. They look really old, slow-footed. They don't have good defensive guards who can navigate screens. Like, that's been a big issue. They were getting destroyed on screens, and so Brook Lopez is having to drop back a lot. Everybody's dropping. It's leading to a bunch of really easy pull-up threes, mid-range jumpers, not to mention because they're just a slower, less athletic team, the rotations aren't very quick. It's leading to a bunch of open threes, which is where they've been primarily getting killed from to begin the season. Just flat out, they don't have many good defenders on this roster, and that was a concern going to the season. It was a concern last year where they were also bad defensively, but especially to begin this year, it's been like awful. 26th in defensive rating. And I know it's only 4 games, but they've played 2 tanking teams and a team without its best player, who happens to be an MVP level guy in Joel Embiid, plus no Paul George. They should be sitting as, like, at worst, a decent defensive team, kind of middle of the pack, maybe a little bit closer, like 20th or 19th, not 26th, and they definitely shouldn't be 1-3 at this point. And the offense hasn't been particularly good either. Like, Giannis and Dame still feel like they don't have chemistry at all. I feel like it looked a little bit better against Philly to open the season, but nothing too crazy. And the last few games, it again just looks like they don't know who each other are. Like, they're playing pickup with each other for the first time. There was some report that they didn't play together at all over the course of the summer. They didn't really work on their games together. And if that's true, I mean, it shows in game. Giannis still isn't a great screener, so pick and roll is tough, and I feel like they still don't even try it that much. Dame and him still don't know when to defer to the other guy. It feels like they're just playing, oh, your turn, my turn offense, and that's never going to work. It just feels like their offense is so unmodern. And it's not just those two who have been having issues together. Like, Brook Lopez has been bad to start the season. Nothing is falling for him, especially not the three-point shot. Bobby Portis hasn't been great, and I've seen a ton of Bucks fans mad saying that he's a ball stopper, that he's ruining the offense. Defensively, he doesn't bring much to the table either. Pat Connaughton still doesn't bring much to the table. Gary Trent Jr. has been shooting decently from 3, but the overall field goal percentage is bad, and he's not giving you a lot in the defensive end. There's just not a lot of cohesive talent here to begin the season, and maybe with a good coach, you could better optimize it, but they don't have a good coach. Doc Rivers is the guy at the helm, the guy that has blown a ridiculous amount of leads, the guy that they panic hired midway through last season, and since they've hired him, the Bucks are 19-23. They're under 500 for a squad that wants to compete for a championship. And I know they dealt with a lot of injuries, especially when Doc got there, but he can't elevate this team at all. A good coach can at least buy them a few more wins. This team has no excuse to be under 500, especially when Adrian Griffin, despite, I know there was a soft schedule to begin the year, but he literally lost the locker room and was clearly not a good coach. And they were still sitting at a record of 30-13. They were getting ugly wins, but at least they were getting wins. They're not even getting those now. And just looking at some guys on the court, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but it feels like some guys have quit out there or just are kind of uninterested. And I mean, if I started the season this way and it looked like there was no hope in sight, I would probably feel pretty dejected too. And I know some people are going to say, wait till Middleton gets back, but we don't know what we're going to get from him when he returns. He's a 33-year-old coming off double ankle surgeries this offseason who has just generally been really injury prone in his recent career. And when he's been out there, like against the Pacers in the playoffs, he looked great. I just don't know how often he's going to be on the court. And while he's going to help out with the offense, I don't anticipate this version of Khris Middleton really helping that much at all defensively, especially when he's going up against some of the bigger, stronger, faster wings that are just out there in the league at this point. It's a pretty concerning beginning. I'm not saying they're completely dead in the water in terms of being a good team, but I don't know if I feel nearly as good about them as I did going into the season. I know it's a small sample size, but like they've been getting torched defensively. They're getting good games from Giannis and Dame here and there. And Dame, by the way, is playing really well despite the 3-ball not falling so far. But none of it's been enough, and the age is really catching up to them, it feels like. I don't feel good about their upcoming schedule. They're 1-3, and the next 6 games, it's the Grizzlies, the Cavs twice, who are currently undefeated, the Jazz, the Knicks, and the Celtics. I feel confident for sure that they'll win one of those games against the Jazz, but the other 5, if you ask me to pick away right now, I would lean the other 5 teams that they're going to face off against, or other 4 teams because they play the Cavs twice. They'll probably pull out with a few of those wins, But even if that's the case, like, you're still a few games under 500, and we're starting to head into, the end of the first quarter of the season after that. It's not super encouraging at all. And with their track record, again, where they're under 500 under Doc Rivers, I don't expect them to pull out more wins than losses in that stretch. I made a video before the season talking about the current Bucks situation, how they're getting older, how there's some contract concerns coming up, and basically saying that they need to show a lot this season or else this thing could come crumbling down fast. That basically this was their championship window right here, right now. And I'm starting to think that I might have been looking a little bit too far ahead, that it might already be crumbling down right in front of our eyes. There was one quote that I found very interesting before the season where Giannis said, if we don't win this year, I could get traded. And that might just sound like an innocuous quote talking about the state of the league. But to me, I mean, coming from Giannis, who over the course of his recent career, multiple times, whenever the Bucks have basically not looked that good, has hinted at trades or playing for other teams. It's just kind of something he does. He did it before they traded for Jrue Holiday. He did it, before they traded for Damian Lillard. Basically, just, it seems like throws subtle hints at the front office like, hey, fix this, or I might request out, or I'm willing to go somewhere else. At one point, he had a straight up quote that he said, I want to stay a Buck for life, but I also want to compete for championships. If I can't do it here, I'll go somewhere else and do it. I feel like that's very realistic, that within the next calendar year, maybe by the time we're talking in October 29th, 2025, that Giannis is on a different team. I'm not going to say it's going to happen this season. He feels like a player way too good to be traded around the deadline. But we get into the summer and the Bucks continue on this trend, or even if they get a little bit better, I just don't feel confident that they have any chance of challenging Boston or any of the better teams in the Eastern Conference if they play anything similar to this throughout the rest of the year. If Khris Middleton's injuries keep up, if they keep showing the rage, and a lot of that seems possible, it feels like there's a real world where Giannis has a formal trade request next summer, at the very least, kind of hints at in the front office. Maybe behind the scenes we hear rumors that Giannis is unhappy, that the Bucks may be willing to explore trades. It may be a path they have to go down because they've exhausted assets. They have no way to improve this roster. They're in salary cap hell. The Dame Giannis pairing doesn't seem like it's going to really bring you anywhere, which is super disappointing because I really like the duo when they assembled. And again, it's only off 4 games. Like, maybe I'm overreacting, but it doesn't feel like I am. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the Bucks right now. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about Milwaukee right now. Am I overreacting? Let me know if I'm going too crazy. Talk me down from the ledge because I want to believe in this team. I really like Giannis. I really like Dame. I really like Khris, Brooke. I like the guys on this roster. I want to see them succeed. And for them to be a challenger to the Celtics, it would be super cool to see Giannis and Dame play together at the highest level in the finals. I just really can't wrap my head around it right now after what we've seen to begin the season. I appreciate you watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Also, let me know if Giannis did get traded. Where do you think he would end up? Because I think that's really fun to talk about. I'm sure a lot of people are going to say OKC, my favorite team. I don't know if the Thunder would go that route just because they look really good right now and they've got young talent that's cheap, locked up long term. So I don't know if they would quite go that way, but I guess it's a possibility. Anyways, I found someone to mention the Thunder in a video a few times, but I appreciate you watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.